Deke asked me to come and talk to you a little bit about our experiences at our ranch, and also, so I'm going to speak to you from two modes today. One as a producer, like most of you are, and one as a professional here at the Noble Foundation. I've got a couple of different topics. I do want to acknowledge my business partner, Ruth. If you'll raise your hand. Some of you don't know Ruth, most of you probably do, but we've been in business together in many ways for about the last 26 years. So without her, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair right here today. I'm going to go way back to 2010, maybe even 2009. I don't know what kind of a year you guys had, but we had tremendous rainfall on our ranch and in southern Oklahoma. It's a good year. And I took this picture on June 10th. The year really isn't important, but you know, this is summer pasture, and you hear Aljo and all us forage guys say the summer grass that you produce, that the majority of it is produced by mid-July. In fact, we go so far as to say that 75% of the forage that we grow is grown by mid-July. Well, that's just an example of what a native grass pasture should look like in mid-June. Can y'all even remember that far back? I know that's hard to imagine, but the world's good. And in that process, I'm not thinking about grass, I'm thinking about my cattle program. And so I'm visiting with Deke and Clay and Robert and trying to get this crossbreeding program down, because they're talking about maternal heterosis and direct heterosis. So I had Deke come out and look for me, and he said, that's not exactly, Chuck, what we're looking for there. And I said, well, it's a crossbred cow, Deke, and she's got a black nose. You always talk about those black noses. They're not discounted. I put an Angus bull on her. What's the deal here? But anyway, he's been working on me trying to change my ways. Actually, that is a Wendy, an orphan calf that we didn't sell. One of my cohorts here that you heard speak earlier today, Jim Johnson, we're all about the weather. Jim and I talk about weather, probably talk about climate more than we do weather. But, you know, climate's the long-term average and trends, whereas weather is more day-to-day. And Jim and I really have about as much faith in a persimmon seed as we do Channel 4 News. And so, you know, the fall of 2010, we get a persimmon seed. Jim cuts it in half, and we take a picture of it, and both agree it kind of looked like a spoon. Well, lo and behold, that February was the snowpocalypse of southern Oklahoma. We got, I don't know, I had 8 to 12, some of these areas I had as much as 14 inches of snow stacked up against native grass residue. Now I want to make a couple of points here. It's important to have residue because this was basically all the rainfall I got for 2011, and it came in the form of snow in February. But I was excited because I thought that was going to kick off the year, and 2011 was going to be just as good as 2010. But those clumps of native grass, those that we always waste, you know, we never eat them all the way to the ground and it just kills us, to see that out there in the winter, there's value in that in protecting your soils. It was a tough winter. The first calf heifers, we lost some of them. My calf was calving right in the middle of that. I had a lot of, didn't lose too many, but it was very noticeable at working time and weaning time because we'd lost a lot of ears and tails and so forth, and it was just a winter I'm not used to and hadn't seen for a long time in Oklahoma. Deke did pick out this heifer and say, this is a little bit more what I'd like to see your herd look like, Chuck. I think you'd get a little more out of that. Moving on, you know, things are going well. Went to the OYE. My daughter, you'll see this little heifer later on in the program, did well with a semi-cross heifer at OYE. I mean, it's a normal year. Spring 2011's coming. It's pretty dry. And my son, we were out riding, he said, Dad, what are you going to do if it doesn't rain? And you know, I tell you guys all the time, you need to pick dates. You need to have markers along the way. If this, then that. Well, I told Aaron, if it doesn't rain, by April 15th, we're going to strip our fall calves. I had some due to mismanagement problems on my part, I slipped some springs to fall, got them rebred and everything. Nonetheless, I had a fall calving herd, and it's mid-April, and I told them if it doesn't rain, we're going to strip the calves and not hold them on to summer grass like you saw earlier, because we're not going to have it, or at least I'm afraid we're not. We're going to need that for the cows. So we took them to the sale barn, and I shipped this herd of cows off-site to another ranch, planning for a year not quite as good as 2010. Early June, we're in 2011. The drought is kind of upon us. We're really starting to feel the effects. No rain. We'd grown a little bit of warm season grass from that summer snow, but not a whole lot. Calves still look good. The cows look pretty fair. And again, Aaron says, Dad, what are we going to do if it doesn't rain? And I said, well, if it doesn't rain by the end of this month, by the end of June, you're going to be here the week of 4th of July. I'm going to take vacation. We're going to wean calves and sell about a third of our herd. Lo and behold, it didn't rain, and that's exactly what we did. In the meantime, one thing I did learn is that a lot of these calves, we depend mostly on some pond water. We don't have a lot of real good ponds, but windmills have always been supplement for us until 2011, when our ponds either dried up or I got too scared to let the cattle drink out of them because of blue-green algae. And so we went and reworked some of our troughs, got them to where the calves could get up there and get a drink, prior to the time that we weaned. It was dry, our ponds were dry. We actually pulled this windmill, put a regular submersible pump underneath the working barrel of the mill and set up a generator so we could hand pump this at any time that we wanted to. And this one well right here pretty much saved our tails through the drought of 2011. It is getting dry. We hadn't shipped cattle yet. Went on to the horse show. My daughter likes to ride and train horses and everything, and I had a hard time having a good time. I was preoccupied with what am I going to do when I get back home? How are we going to set up everything? How are we going to handle weaning? It's 110 degrees. Is this even possible? Well, the guys at the foundation, I use them just like you do, except I'm lucky because they're right next door and I can holler, hey, Deke. And, it bothers them sometimes because I ask so many questions. But I did come home and started talking to them about all those questions. And again, here's a slide to show you, rainfall and what was going on in 2011. I don't know who got that rainfall in southern Oklahoma. This is south central Oklahoma. And I don't know in the month of May, that blue bar, who actually got that 5 inches, but nobody I talked to remembers 5 inches in May, and I certainly didn't get it. But look at June, July, August. I mean, temperatures are extreme, rainfall's almost non-existent. Again, if it doesn't rain in May and June, you don't grow warm season grass. You just don't. So we come back from the horse show and everything, and this is 4th of July week, riding into the sunset, working, fixing to gather cattle and get ready to wean. We weaned our calves on that week of 4th of July. It's 110 degrees. We started as early as we could see to get around. We had a number of cows to work through that day. We were both weaning, ran the calves through the chutes, gave them their vaccinations, put them in some backgrounding pens where we held them and fed them for 45 days. We shipped a third of our cull cows. The livestock auctions were starting to fill up already with cattle, and luckily, while I was sitting at the horse show, I got in contact with Cavernous Packing. And that's ended up being where we marketed our cattle. I got a bid on those cattle about 10 days prior to, and it just so happened because it was 4th of July week, they were going to be working 3 days that week and really wanted some cattle, so it worked out good for me. I felt I got a good bid and everything. And so we got the cows shipped. We retained the cows that we retained and heifers that we retained. Let me tell you something. In July, when it's 110 degrees, if you've got first or maybe even second calf heifers, I call them, you don't wean the calves, you wean the heifers. I mean, I didn't have a lot of trouble with the calves, but these heifers were miserable. Their bags strutted out. They would not leave the fence. They had to go about 3/4 of a mile to get to water. We tried to take them with the feed truck, driving with horses. They kept looping back. In that whole process, I lost 3 first calf heifers just because I could not get them to go to shade. I could not get them to go to water. They stood right out there in the sun and just baked. And that was a terrible feeling. Right after we got through that, everything's set. We got all the calves weaned, got the cows shipped. We're kind of on cruise control, know where we're going from there. Lo and behold, all these thunderstorms started lining up along I-35 that year, and then they would go east and give eastern Oklahoma. McAllister would catch a little bit of rain, but we'd get these thunderstorms. And one evening late at work, I saw the weather coming through. I picked up the phone, called my son, and I said, get out to a high spot, watch the pastures. This thunderstorm's got lightning with it. And lo and behold, this one storm lit 4 fires the week after the 4th of July, say July 10th. It lit 2 up top, and the fire department, we got a real good fire department there at Springer. They got up there and whipped them out real quick, but the other 2, there was no way to get to them, and it just turned into the Arbuckle Complex fire, which it burned a whole lot of grass, but it was grass I couldn't eat anyway because there wasn't any water where the grass was. And that's kind of obvious. That's what you run into with the drought. So it burned a lot of cedar, really did us quite a bit of good. Good help is good to find. And Ruth was worn out. She's probably going to shoot me when I get home. But you know, you gotta take a break sometimes. You really do. And not only from exhaustion, but you've got to take a break and think things out. You've got to think into the future. You've got to play what if. What if this happens? What if that happens? What do I feed? How do I feed it? And that's what the Noble Foundation is here to try to help you do. And I'm here to tell you too that a lot of times I think a wrong decision is better than no decision at all when it comes to cattle and drought and lack of grass and those kind of things. You know, if you wait and let nature dictate what happens to you, you generally end up with your back up against the wall. Sometimes you get lucky and it'll rain and all of a sudden save you, but sometimes you get backed up against the wall. Well, guess what? We got the fires out. Everything's good. We're on cruise control. Then our well goes dry where we've got our calves backgrounded, and I'm about 12 days into the backgrounding process. I can't get rid of these calves now. You know, it's a bad time. They're in dust. I'm just scared to death. If I did sell them, they're going to break on somebody wanting to try to do the right thing. So we start hauling water. And we could haul about 800 gallons at a time, bought a little pump at Tractor Supply, and it would take me about 5 minutes to load and unload 800 gallons of water with this little 2-inch pump. Which was kind of fun to start with. It's 100, but after about 3-4 weeks of that, you get really wore out. There's that show heifer. You know, cattle are kind of special to us, and so we ended up trying to make a cow out of this show heifer, and she's not sure what to eat, but she stayed fairly fleshy on prickly pear. Didn't like the dry grass very much, but seemed to like pears. A good thing with the drought is we lost a lot of cedar. I mean, they just flat went south. And so I was kind of proud of that. You can see what our grass is looking like. I'm not too proud of that. But this is a very shallow rocky site. In the deep sites, we didn't lose that much cedar. Just a picture of the ground and what it was doing. No, that's not the Missouri River from 40,000 feet. That's actually the toes of my boots there to prove it. Something else that works well for us are solar pumps. Originally, when we took over the operation in the Arbuckles, we were using a lot of cheapy solar pumps. They were in a plastic case, and I don't know if you guys use those or not, but Harold Dudley said, man, he's the well guy we use, Harold Dudley out of Dixon, real good fellow. He said, you've just got to go to a more expensive pump. So we started reworking our solar wells. We went to these stainless steel encased pumps, and you know, they're expensive. They're $2,000, $2,500 for a pump, and then I don't know, those panels are probably $200 or $300 per panel. And so by the time you set up a well, it costs $7,000. If you got to case the hole and do a lot of other things like that, it might cost $7,000 or $8,000. But we work the heck out of these solar wells. Again, there's the help. The neat thing about the solar pumps that we use, they will also work off a generator. You can switch them from sunlight from solar energy to plug them into, you know, a direct wire them to a generator. So Ruth's job Well, I was here at work in the air conditioning, taking phone calls and everything, and enjoying things. Ruth was out pumping water for me, and she would, we'd put a little generator on the back of this four-wheeler, and she could go do that. She's got some real good help there with her too. I spent a lot of time in prayer in that time. I really did. I think it made a stronger man out of me. I'd look at little things, not that you necessarily look at that for a sign, but certain things I started to appreciate, even though it was 110 degrees. It's weird how things work. We ate a lot of watermelon. One thing I learned that watermelon is very good in the summer when you come in and it's been a long day and you're really not hungry, because it makes you sick to your stomach because all the stresses that you go through, you can handle a little watermelon. We shared some with the pigs. We had a couple of local pigs. I don't think these are wild. It looks like they're ear notched. We probably stole them off the Lazy S Ranch or something down south, but we took them in and spared a little water for the wildlife there. Everything's kind of still on cruise control with the calves. They're in the lots. We're hauling water. I got out of there and took Ruth out of there and went to the OCA convention and watched one of our local producers from Lindsay win the Cattleman of the Year award, which was a lot of fun. Finally, in August, we catch about 1.5 inches of rain. And this picture says a lot to me, because I didn't think I would get any growth out of that 1.5 inches, but just a week later, I was amazed at the amount of regrowth that occurred in pastures where the ground was covered and where the plants were healthy. Where the plants were not healthy, I didn't see that green growth. So again, that concept of keeping the ground covered, keeping the plants healthy, those old dead wolfy native grass plants that you see out there, or that we used to see out there, are very beneficial to the water cycle. There's that heifer again. She's lost a little condition. You can't really see it good in that picture, but she went from sack feed to prickly pear, and she's not a real good mother, but for some reason we can't sell her. You can see her udders. They're strutted out. I don't know where her calf is. She needs to go nurse it, but she saw the feed truck, so here she comes.